when the Freedom Charter is applied, capitalism amongst Africans will flourish as never before.
Can you give me a job?
I can't give you a job. I am one person.
Build the economy, flourish as never before. That was the assignment. And yet, 30 years after Nelson Mandela's rise to freedom, ask for a job. The honest answer he receives is, there is no job. I can't give you a job. I am just one person. Between Mandela's promise and that man's plea lies everything I want to talk about today. The visible frustration on that man's face tells us a completely different story. So today, I want to make an argument, and a very simple one. The energy we are pouring into finding an enemy is exactly the energy we should be pouring into building a business. This is not about the immigrants. This is not about South Africa. This is about Africa at large. Thank you for joining the Beyond Africa podcast. I am your host, as usual, Bernard Ngalim. As always, my goal is not to repeat the popular narrative, but to turn it into an honest and harder question that we Africans must ask ourselves. Picture this scene. A movement called March and March has told every undocumented African living in South Africa to leave by June 30. They must go is the reference. In Johannesburg, Operation Dudula marches through the inner city. Thousands are organized. Logistics are put in place. Marching routes are planned. A whole nation's attention is mobilized to one target. There is a target. Sometimes we need to be very critical because the energy we put into these things is very important. And I want you to notice the energy, the organization, and not the anger. The energy. It takes real organization to move thousands of people through a city on a chosen date, to follow a particular route, to put everything together, have leadership, and have communication well planned and structured. That same energy, that exact capacity to organize, is the energy that builds factories, is the energy that transforms the message to the populace that building is better than identifying the enemy. That energy opens up businesses. It creates jobs that the man we saw in the recording above is begging for. So far, South Africans have proven that they can mobilize. They are simply mobilizing against a person, against human targets, instead of towards a project. Sometimes these are the projects that change humanity. There are people who can pull themselves from the lower echelons of society to the higher echelons of society. But what do they lack? The motivation, the means, and the networks. If this mobilization were put together to pull people up, I think it should have been easy to identify people who can carry the economic transformation of both Africa and South Africa to the next generation. I am not saying people should not advocate for their rights, or people who feel maltreated should not stand up and speak for themselves. I am looking at the energy that we put into organization. Why? Because we had an assignment. Building was the assignment. In Mandela's own words, he said it very clearly. We have now attained independence. The next step is to build. If you study the basic document or the policies of the Freedom Charter of the ANC, he said it very clearly.
When the Freedom Charter is applied, capitalism amongst Africans will flourish as never before.
And when he governed, Mandela held the line. In 1996, he launched a macroeconomic strategy on 3 words: growth, employment, redistribution. He had warned as early as 1990 that the economy must grow faster than the population, or living standards cannot rise. So the instruction was clear: free your people to produce, build the working economy, let the jobs follow. In the form of a diagnosis, now listen to the woman in that job conversation, because she actually diagnoses the problem correctly. She says, and note her words, jobs are created in places where the government works properly. When the government works, the people work. Business comes in. They invest and they create jobs. Sewage works, water works, the lights are on, industries run. Then investments can come in. So when the jobs are missing, the honest question is not who took them. It is, did we build the working economy Mandela asked for? And the answer is uncomfortable. The economy does not produce too few jobs because immigrants take too many. The research is blunt. Each immigrant tends to create roughly 2 jobs, not destroy them. The economy produces. Let me be precise, because this matters. The problem is not that today's leadership is black. Mandela himself was black. Thabo Mbeki was black. The problem is that the liberation that was supposed to build has settled for politics that blames. The face of the enemy keeps changing. Yesterday was Time. Today the Zimbabweans, the Mozambican, the Nigerian, the Somali, the Cameroonian, the Ghanaian. The unbuilt economy stays exactly the same. For the immigrants who have already left, have new jobs been created? If we keep on identifying the problems, when do we make the time to build the businesses? Another question. It is not a victory for those who say, if immigrants go, there will still be no jobs for South Africans. Neither is it a victory for those who say immigrants must stay. These two competing philosophies are not looking at the larger picture. They are looking at the now, the here, the moment. Some have said they are not interested in the immigrant jobs because the immigrants do the odd jobs that South Africans will not go for. They are more interested in the mines. They are more interested in the large farms, in the telecom sector. Those are huge and significant investments. But the question now is, if you get that investment, how would you manage it? One can equally ask, would you manage it as you've been managing the different municipalities or even the government? Because it's the same mentality that created the current framework that has resulted in an economy where there are no jobs. If South Africans are complaining today, it is because they feel the economy has stagnated. It is not producing. The more important question is to review all the policies that have taken South Africa to this position, because the policies are responsible for the outcomes. And I am not saying anything new. Serious South African thinkers have been saying it for years. For example,
South Africa is in serious problem. I don't know about yourselves, but me, I don't know where South Africa will be tomorrow. Where are we going? How are we going to solve all of these problems? Whether it's crime or the economy, unemployment, this and that and the other.
There's poverty, it's true. But do we believe that if tomorrow all the Africans left, there'll be zero unemployment in this country and there'll be zero poverty? The challenge is our economy. Yes, The grievances are correct, but I think we're barking on the wrong tree.
We've got many problems here. Problem legitimately raised. Huge levels of unemployment. That's correct. High levels of crime. That's correct. But the finger is being pointed at wrong people. The levels of high unemployment in this country are not due. They are not due to undocumented Africans.
My good friend, Swana, a South African governance analyst, keeps pointing at the unglamorous truth. South Africa cannot industrialize without abundant, affordable electricity and a state that actually delivers its projects. Smelters and factories are closing, not because of immigrants, he argues, but because the basics, that is power, governance, and the rule of law, were all allowed to fail. He concludes, the fix is not at the border. It is at the power station, the port, and the procurement office. All these put together and managed by governance, by policies, by the people who run the country, not by the people who come in.
We know the history in detail of how South Africa, 1994 to 2000, 2008, 2009, the country goes up like this. Growth rates reach 6%. From 2009 goes the opposite direction. Doesn't caused by undocumented immigrants. The people who caused that, you look at it, that decline, they are laughing in a corner there. Because we're pointing not at them, but we're pointing somewhere else. It's wrong.
On a larger picture, Celestin Monga, the Cameroonian economist and former chief economist at the African Development Bank, is even sharper. He makes a continental argument. According to him, the young African population would have been the continent's greatest opportunity. But without jobs and skills, the youth is becoming a threat. His prescription is simple. Stop chasing 20 industries at once. Pick the ones where you can compete. Put your people to work, because the solution lies in government policy. What about the late George Ayittey, who said the thing nobody wants to hear out loud? The skills you need to wage a liberation struggle are not the same as the skills to run an economy. He split Africa into two generations. The hippos, stuck in the past, who blame colonialism instead of building, and the cheaters, that is the young, fast, entrepreneurial Africans who refuse to wait for government and simply go and build. In my view, June 30 is a hippo solution to a cheetah problem. It blames, it does not build. Cheetahs, the animal, is looking forward. Now, someone would say, easy to talk. Show me a country that actually did it. Someone said in the comments section, and I appreciate that comment. You said, I should go talk to the rest of Africa on how to do this. Of course, that is why I'm talking here. And I'm not talking specifically to South Africa. I'm talking to the new generation of Africans who, in George Ayittey's words, need to be the cheaters. They need to look forward. They need to look at where they can build. For example, look at Singapore. In 1965, Singapore was thrown out of Malaysia. No natural resources, no hinterland. A poor, crowded island. At independence, its GDP per capita was around $500. One economist called it a poor little market in the dark corner of Asia. And here is the part that matters for Mandela's vision regarding Singapore. Singapore did not build with pure free market capitalism. It built with a mixed economy, exactly the kind Mandela prescribed. The state set up an economic development board to cut investments. It created government-linked companies in strategic sectors. It built a world-class port, an airport, housing and skills, while leaving enormous room for private enterprise and foreign investors. We should look at ourselves in the mirror and see who is responsible for the problem. Instead of teaching the next generation to identify the enemy, to identify the problem as coming from outside, my position, my approach is we should teach them to identify the market. I don't think we should wait for a transitional generation. We should start it now by talking to ourselves. Instead of training ourselves to ask who is taking our jobs, we should train ourselves to ask, what can I build and what does it take to build? Mandela said, capitalism amongst Africans would flourish as never before. Today is June 29, 2026, and we have a reply from Mandela. Mr. Mandela, the good news is that the energy to build is clearly still here. We saw it organize a march. The only question left is where we choose to use that energy at this point. And we promise to use that energy to change the mindsets, the mentalities, the targets, and how we use our brains going forward. Thank you so much for watching. If this gave you something to think about, please like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Let me leave you with one question. On June 30, South Africa decided who to blame. Singapore, with far less, decided what to build. Which decision are we going to make next? I look forward to reading your perspectives in the comments section. See you in the next episode of our podcast.